I hope this film will be one addition to is just be giving the positive images that are combating that. Like I really hope this film is one more positive image that little black girls are going to watch it and be like, "Oh my gosh, look at their hair."
Thank you so much for joining us today, Alicia.
Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you today. Also, congratulations on your TIFF premiere.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a whirlwind and I'm really excited about it. Still.
I would be too. Yeah, it's a huge achievement. What was the process like of getting your short into TIFF? What was that like for you?
Well, first of all, finishing it. I mean, we filmed it last year and that feels like the hard part, but getting it over the finish line, there was like many little bumps along the way. So finally having it finished and then getting it into TIFF, it just felt like not only like a big exhale, but it just, yeah, I just felt really excited to finally be able to celebrate it and share it because, a lot of people come together and work on it and then they're like, what's happening with it? And, we worked with a lot of non-actors. So the process of like being in the waiting game part of it is, can be slow, but
Hmm.
it felt really special to one, be premiering in our hometown because again, so many, like there's about like 20 people in it and a lot of
Hmm.
people worked on it. So as much as it would have been cool to like premiere in a different city, there's something really special about premiering in Toronto in one of the biggest city film festivals in the world. So
Of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
exciting.
That's crazy that you said you worked with a lot of non-actors because you can't tell. And we'll get to
Oh,
that later in the questions. But yeah, no, that's not
yay.
clearly you're an amazing director because you couldn't tell
Oh,
and your cast was
thank you.
great. But speaking of the title, On a Sunday at 11, um, the rhythm of it is poetic, um, which I think is like most of your films that I've seen, but especially this one. Um, can you talk more about where the idea of this short came from, but also how you came up with the title?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So the idea came from, well, it all started with my film Pick, which is my previous short, and that's a
Hmm.
film about black hair.
Hmm.
And it's about a girl who wears her afro to school on picture day, and she has to deal with microaggressions. And spoilers, the film's been out for a while, but ultimately it doesn't have a happy ending. In the end, she's wearing her afro for picture day. Everybody's kind of making comments towards her, and she feels uncomfortable. And
Hmm.
so eventually, for her school photo, she ties her afro back and has it like pulled back. And
Hmm.
it was interesting because every time I would play the film, people would kind of, a lot of people, well, black women would relate to it and,
Hmm.
thank me for bringing the story to light. But I found a lot of people would kind of question why I didn't have the character like prevail in the end or like keep her hair out and be
Oh,
triumphant and have it be this happy ending. And
yeah.
I would kind of not be frustrated, but I would be like, I don't think we should be putting it on the child to keep
Yes.
overcome all these microaggressions, overcome what everyone else is like saying. And I don't think that's real life. Like,
Yeah.
so I wanted it to reflect real life and I wanted it to be a teaching moment because I kind of felt like if that film had a happy ending, people would be like, oh, okay, well, black girls have to deal with all this stuff, but they're still,
Hmm.
that's okay. They're going to just keep, getting over it and, being the strong black woman and
Yeah.
we don't have to change our behavior.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was really important for me for that film to have, I'm not going to call it a sad ending, but a realistic ending and almost, a shocking ending for people. But then having that ending, I almost felt like I just didn't want that to be the last thing I was saying about black hair because
Hmm.
I was actually
Hmm.
making that film about more my childhood. And then I ended up like cutting off all my hair while making that film and really coming back to loving my natural hair and experimenting with braids for the first time ever. And so I really was like, this has to be a trilogy. I don't know. I just came up with a trilogy, but
It's a
I was
trilogy
like,
now, y'all.
yeah,
We're
because I
getting
was
a
like,
part three, Screenfish community.
yeah, exactly. Well, I haven't thought of it yet, but I told everybody it's a trilogy. And I just was like, I don't want this to be the last thing I was saying about black hair, and that's really where it came from. And then because it was years ago, I don't actually really remember where the whole film genesis came from of this new one, but I know it
Mhm.
started with an experience of being the only black ballerina in the class, in my ballet class, and I'm not extremely attached to the idea of ballet, but I started to like the idea of it being a symbol.
Mhm.
Because like I didn't become a ballerina. I'm not necessarily still devastated about that. It's sad. Maybe I would have, but I
Yeah.
actually was writing it more from the perspective of just the feeling of being the only black girl in the room and how I feel that way in film as well. And that's kind of what was fueling it in the present day, but I really loved the images of black ballerinas and
Mhm.
I loved the idea of showing here's this traditional art form that is like traditionally European and like really praising a certain body type and a certain look that isn't a black woman, but I just was really excited now that my work has gone in very visual direction of like the visual possibilities of exploring ballet and dance and what I could experiment with hair as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh my gosh, that is lovely. I just want to throw in my 2 cents there.
Mm.
Um, I appreciate how Pick ended because you're right, it is realistic. I don't know a single Black friend that I have or Black family member that I have that doesn't have a hair story, right?
Yeah,
And
totally.
this was also for your main heroine and Pick. This is her formative years when she's developing herself. So and her coming into her own self esteem. So I thought the ending was like devastating, but it made sense. Like it was a punch to the gut because with a shared experience, you felt it. So I just loved it. So
Aw, thank you.
um,
Yeah.
but going back to the imagery of whiteness, as you spoke on, in the short, the young ballerina angel, she is surrounded by whiteness in her class, as you mentioned, in the imagery of the European Eurocentric ballerina, even at the hair salon when she's going towards a straighter hairstyle. Um, but she's also surrounded by so much Black beauty and community. Why was it important for you to show her journey towards gravitating towards whiteness and how this affected her as a budding ballerina?
Hmm. Yeah, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of this experiment, but there was this experiment done forever ago where black children were given a white Barbie and a black Barbie and were asked like which
Mm,
one was more beautiful, and they all would still choose the white Barbie or the white doll. I think it was dolls. And it's just I just wanted to show that like no matter that these images are just so pervasive that
yeah.
even if you have a mom with a huge afro that's like braiding your hair and literally sending you to ballet class being like you are, there's no dialogue in the film, but I imagine the mom's giving her a pep talk and like,
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
love getting my hair braided because I'm like, oh my God, it's like a cool new style that I now get to have. And I feel the character probably felt that before she got into the space and was left
Mhm.
out. But yeah, the images that we get shown are so in your face and also so
Yeah.
subconscious. Like it's
Mm.
in TV, it's like on a billboard, it's, you know, around you at all the time. And so I just really wanted to show that like the amount of love and community that you need to like squash
Mhm.
that is a lot
Yes.
because no
Yes.
matter what, whatever you still see in the media is still ultimately most of the time saying something different, especially in the
Yeah.
space of ballet. Yes, she has like what I want to show is like, yes, she has her mom who's like, has this big ferocious afro. Yes, she goes to the hair store and she sees other black women, and that's what I love about the hair store is like that's one of the only places where you're not the only black girl in the room, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I wanted to show as well with the church. Like, what are the spaces I can think of that are where if you are white, you would be in the minority?
Yeah.
But the hair store, I worked at the hair store for 2 years actually before I made Pick as like I as research, but I just needed a job. Um, but it
You're so
was
real for
really
that.
yeah, no, I was there doing research for 2 years for this film. But I never thought of the hair store being a part of this ballet film. It was only until
Mm.
I actually worked there and I saw the moms come in with their daughters and kind of be saying like and I am not judging in any way, but it was just hard to hear. Like they just were, it was hard doing their kids' hair. Like
Yeah.
it was difficult. And I would hear sometimes comments being made in front of the child about their hair and,
Hmm.
see people buying the relaxer products. And I, you know, as much as I loved the Black hair store as like a place of community, and girls would come in with like their hair, oh, they didn't get enough braiding hair and their hair would be out. They come in with their bonnets. And I honestly did feel like it was a place of no judgment because you're another Black woman
Yeah,
and you see that girl's wearing her. I'm not judging people with their bonnet. I'm like, yeah, you're coming to the hair store to get your deep conditioner that,
exactly.
you're coming to the hair store because you ran out of braiding hair. Like this is a place of non-judgment. You go into the wig room, people are taking off their wigs and putting on new wigs. Like as we're all Black women, I think I look at people and I'm like, yeah, this is a safe space to do that because we all understand hair and that it's a sensitive thing.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, it's an industry and it's a store that's selling, here's how you can make your hair whiter, here's how you can
Hmm.
make your hair straighter. And as much as you can absorb the community of being in space with all these Black women, and I, as a sales associate, and I feel other sales associates, we would always still try to encourage people. And we'd be really supportive if people came in and said they did the big chop, and really supportive when people wanted to try something new when they bought a wig.
Hmm.
And you can do your best, but at the same time people are still in there to like get whatever they were going to get. The
Yeah, yeah.
mom that came in and said I'm going to buy my a relaxer for my child today is still going to do that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just wanted to show like that space was important to me because it's such a beautiful community, but at the same time we're all being brought there together by this desire to influence our appearance
Hmm.
at the end of the
Hmm.
day. And something
Hmm.
that didn't make it into the movie was because I wanted to make it more focused about hair, but we showed like the bleaching cream aisle.
Oh, okay.
And that was something that I always hated having to help people with. Um,
Mm.
because I just wanted to be like, don't like don't use this product. But
Yeah,
at the same time, I'm
obviously.
just helping customers. Yeah, it didn't make it into the film because it felt out of place, but
Yeah.
it's just one more aspect of the beauty supply store. It's not like you can go buy those products at Shoppers Drug Mart. It's specifically being sold in a store that is for Black women because that
Hmm.
Black people are being influenced to buy those products.
Yeah.
So,
No, no, such a wonderful answer. Thank you so much for that thorough answer because and it'll come up in a moment here, but I think that's what makes your films so special, at least for me as a viewer, because you really understand the world you're entering, whether it's
mm,
through your personal experience or through your keen observational skills. Like in an 8-minute short about microaggressions and, questioning, the power of your Black identity through the lens of a child, younger than your main heroine in Pick, she's just absorbing and experiencing. You feel that it feels real because of those small nuanced things that you've just spoken about. That scene in the hair salon, I really loved it because I felt like I was there. I've been in that position. I've been through those aisles, and you're right, it's a business, but it's also trying to inspire Black women to love their hair. But then there's
mhm.
still those internalized things that are said to children or felt as an adult. And working through that is tough. Loving
Yeah.
yourself as Black people is tough. It's a lifelong journey. So like kudos to you. Like you killed it.
Aw,
I loved
thank
it.
you.
You know
Thank
you
you.
killed it, but I'm just gonna tell you because I loved it.
Aw, well, honestly, just like whenever I talk to other Black women, I'm like, it just feels so nice for the film is definitely understood by other people, but there's just like an ease with the understanding because the experiences are so common. And like even if you didn't do ballet, this
Mm,
like it's sometimes just a subconscious pressure. Maybe nobody ever said to you, straighten your hair, or do this or
yeah.
do that, or make your skin lighter. But when you're looking at something that over years and years and years, like you said, we're absorbing it.
Yeah.
That little girl is not going to go home and say to her mom, necessarily like, oh mom, I saw the relaxer product and like the little girl looks so pretty with like her hair type or this, that, or whatever. So how is the mom gonna, combat
Yeah.
every image that her daughter has seen that day?
Yeah.
Like it's all just being absorbed and absorbed, and all you can really do, and what I hope this film will be one addition to, is just be giving the positive images that are combating that. Like I really hope this film is one more positive image that little black girls are going to watch it and be like, "Oh my gosh, look at their hair." Like the hair art
Yeah.
is Deandra Morris, hair designer. Like the hair art is stunning, and not everybody's hair can do that, okay?
Yeah.
It's malleable. It's like it's just art, and it's so beautiful, and I want little black girls to watch it and also be like, "Look at this ballet." Like,
Yeah.
oh, so ballerinas can look like that. And it's so amazing that I'm sitting here saying like I hope the film has this effect, because when we made it to the premiere, I was talking to Tanish, Zoe, the lead actor's mom, and after the Q&A, I said, I hope little black girls will watch this and like become ballerinas. And she said, you know what, Alicia, like Zoe's registered to do ballet in September, because after doing the film, and not even that she'd seen it, but after doing the film and seeing at rehearsals the choreographer and the dancers, she was so in awe of them and already so inspired. No hair art, no fancy costumes, just
Wow.
seeing them like do ballet,
Yeah.
and now she's registered to do it. And I'm like,
Amazing.
that just touches my heart so much, because I'm like, there already was a little black girl that was affected by this film, and it started
Hmm.
while we were making it, and that's just like so special to me.
As they say, representation matters.
Exactly.
I want to go back to the poetic undertones of your work. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but as a writer and a director, Blackness and Black identity feels synonymous with poetry for you. In Pick,
Mm.
we see this in the cadence of the rhythm of the camera shutters. So, in that last frame that you referenced earlier, when she pulls her hair back and her picture is being taken, it's pounding, and there's three, and you just see in each frame her self-esteem like dissipating essentially. In Only Light Will Touch Us, it's about a black man's reflection in his room under the sunlight, literally through a poem about how joyful and vulnerable he feels in this safe environment. And then, of
Mm.
course, in On a Sunday at 11, we are taken into the escapist world that offers Angel some peace to the anxiety she's experiencing when she's imagining these beautiful black ballerinas and their hair art, as you mentioned. So, can you speak more to that form of storytelling? Because I know you mentioned earlier,
Mm.
you're working on that visual storytelling, you're expanding on that. But can you talk more about why you like to tell stories this way through poetic lens, but then
Mm.
also how it expands for you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for like really taking a look at all my work, because it's really cool to reflect on the evolution of like how and why I even got here. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
watch my first film, it's like a comedy, like my student thesis film, it's like a comedy, and it's still very visual, but I'm often like, wait, how did I get here? But I can see it, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of started, nothing's an accident, but it feels like it started by accident, because when I went to film school, I became interested in production design. And after I graduated school, there was like a contest and it was like, make a film about blah, 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 blah. And so I wanted to make this film for this tight deadline. And I was like, what can I achieve? And I was like, I'm going to make a film about rooms, and I'm just going to narrate it with a poem. And that was kind of actually born out of just the fact that I didn't have time to get actors. And I ended up narrating this poem about my own experience
Mm-hmm.
and using my production design skills to tell a story that was entirely using space. And it's a film called Maybe If It Were a Nice Room. And it was a poem narration. And it was about, unfortunately, it's about my sexual assault experience. And I took that approach kind of out of necessity, but I also was like, I really appreciate having more nuance and more
Mm-hmm.
symbolism in my work instead of being explicit. And with that film, which was the genesis of like these poetic style and poetry films, I really just wanted
Hmm.
to like make something that survivor could appreciate without it's it's definitely still like a moving film, but it's not like here's a like violent horrible scene. And
Hmm.
so I think it came out of me because like it was meant to come out of me in that way, and I'm an artist, and art comes from somewhere. But it was really almost like the technical thing of like, what can I achieve in this amount of time? Well, I better write something about myself so I can narrate
Yeah.
it, and I'm gonna use rooms and space to tell this story. And I think that's really informed all of my work going forward, because the spaces that things take place in and the production design are really important to everything I'm doing. And then this kind of like poem narration has,
Hmm.
like you said, I've done another film like that. And I think the poetic visuals, like coming from being interested in production design and like space, the using the visuals really deliberately to tell the story is just really important to me. And I'm almost like, what I feel like it's like a fun challenge for myself to be like, how much can this image speak to the viewer
Mm.
with like
Yeah.
in just this one frame? Like, unfortunately, this is
Hmm.
a very boring frame, but how much like if I was in my actual apartment, you would be getting a lot from my normal
Yeah.
background. Like, I'm always like, how much can we say in the shortest amount of time, honestly? And
Hmm.
every single frame and every single space to me should add to it. And I think in going forward with my work being very specifically about Black people, I just think this poetic treatment is a treatment that we really deserve. Like when I
Mm.
saw Beyonce's Lemonade, I was so
Ugh.
inspired as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like going
We
forward
all
with
were,
my
girl.
work.
We
I
were
know,
all
oh my
moved.
God. Yeah, like I was like, this is a documentary, this is a musical film, this is like a visual feast. And I
Yeah.
was really inspired, I think, to like push. And I still haven't even wait till I get the budgets that I want. It's like
Wait for the
I
budget.
I
She's gonna
still
go
like,
crazy.
yeah, well, I love like creating a visual that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah.
And on a Stand at 11 is grounded and has heightened moments, but I definitely am really excited to like see in the future how I can push heightened moments even more. But I was really
Hmm.
inspired by Lemonade. It was such a poetic, there's poetry narration in that.
Yeah.
Like it was such a beautiful, poetic film, personal, and the visuals were just so incredible that I just, you know, that just was one additional piece of like, I want to keep making really beautiful images, and I think Black people deserve that. I don't want to just
Yeah.
see traumatizing images. I also want to see beauty, and I want to see our stories captured with beauty and poetry.
Yeah. Well, even like Black Canadian representation or, Afro Caribbean Canadian or Caribbean Canadian, there's so much Black identity in Canada and not enough expression of it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's so important. And I want to say too, because when I was watching On a Sunday, I had a thought. I was like, she could really direct a Beyonce music video. Like she could do that.
I'm available,
Um,
Beyonce.
Beyonce, put Alicia K. Harris on your Rolodex. It
Oh,
looks like I'm running out of time here with you, so I got to move through my questions because I have more. I want to go back into your artistry that you just touched on for a moment. As a writer and director, as your career evolves, obviously there's so many more stories you want to tell. How do your ideas come to you? Is it like your That's So Raven moment? You're just like on a run, or like third act of your world tour in the shower, and you're like, bam, story. Like,
mhm.
how are you inspired? What atmospheres inspire you as your career evolves,
Mm.
moving from your past work as you evolve as a director writer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say everything still comes from personal experience mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying, even with the Black ballet film, I was inspired by, yes, being the only Black girl in the ballet class, but then the inspiration grew by feeling like, oh, this experience is also how I feel being in film. Like this is like a universal feeling that you can apply to many different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's really hard for me to answer because some ideas are just floating around in my head for years before
Mm-hmm.
I actually write them down.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with something like Only Light Will Touch Us, which is the story of a black man like being vulnerable in the safety of his bedroom, and how, obviously that was kind of born after like 2020, and
Hmm.
being reminded, because none of this is new, but like being reminded
Hmm.
of like the image that people put on a black man and the stereotypes and untrue, unfair judgments, and fear that people feel about a black man. And the movie was just about a man kind of taking off his armor in his room and just feeling free to just dance and like be vulnerable. And that
Hmm.
idea actually started from wanting to, again, my spaces. I love doing stuff about space, and I love the idea of someone's bedroom and how it can tell a story. And I wanted to do, and maybe I'm still going to do this, but I wanted to do a documentary about like little black children, like black boys in their rooms. And
Hmm.
then this was, again, another commission. So it was on a tight timeline that I had to do it and
Yeah.
had to achieve it. And I ended up shifting the idea because I was like, I I want to challenge the viewer to empathize with an adult man, because
Hmm.
empathizing with a child is much easier to do. Like you
Hmm.
can, think the child is like cute and sweet, but I wanted to like challenge them. So I ended up changing it to be an adult. And again, so that idea just evolved into like five different ideas, until it became that over years. Sometimes I'll just be sharing an experience, like the idea for my upcoming feature.
Okay.
I'll be sharing something, and there'll be filmmakers around, and they'll be like, "Oh, what are you going to write about that?" And I was like, "Huh, never thought that was like film worthy." But yeah, I find my ideas are really coming from my own experiences. But whenever I have a job where, like a music video, for example, where I'm like forced to come up with an idea in a short amount of time, and it's not about
Hmm.
necessarily my own experience, I'm definitely still drawing from my real experiences and real emotions. But I love looking at images. I just get so much inspiration from images themselves. Like seeing one image of something can spark a whole idea for me. So I
I
do
love
spend
that.
time on, I love Pinterest for that, honestly.
Oh,
Like you can click one editorial interesting image and you get all this like array of images, and I get really inspired by that too. I get inspired by
mm,
paintings, I get inspired by music. So it comes from a lot of different places, but I feel beyond real memories, it's coming from real emotions that I've experienced, and just trying to figure out how to translate that into images.
hmm. Amazing. You really are like you're so inspiring. I want you to know that. And
Aw,
I'm not
I
just
love this
gassing
interview.
you. I love this interview too. I'm not just gassing you. I genuinely believe that your work is going to be successfully, if you want it to, exported from Canada internationally. I see you having a very big career one day. But
Aw.
as not one day, sorry, you have a big career now, but
No,
I
I
can
know
see
what you
you
mean.
going
I
to
am
the
still, for sure, definitely still trying to grow to that bigger. I'm trying to go to the Beyonce level. So,
Exactly. You're going to get
yeah.
there. I know you're going to get there.
Aw.
But as we wrap this interview, I want to ask for our Screenfish community, what can we expect next from Alicia K. Harris?
Yes, great question. So I directed a television show called Beyond Black Beauty, and that's coming out on Prime Video on October 15th. And it's really special when what I'm trying, my mission as a filmmaker is to really tell untold stories about Black people in a new way. And it's nice when I can be brought on to a project that is also doing that. And this story is about a young girl who is an equestrian, and she's grown up in Belgium, but then her family loses all their money and she has to move to Baltimore. And so she's going from this very posh, like rich horse world into this now other side where she's meeting the black side of her family for the first time, who have this community ranch. And it's more like the
Mm.
black side of horse riding. It's like the
Oh,
black rodeo, riding your horses down the street, like concrete cowboys. And
okay, okay.
so it's this fish out of water story of her now kind of learning about this new side of herself and side of her family that she doesn't know. So it's really like a celebration of like real Black cowboy communities that exist in the States. And that was like a part of the Genesis. And
Hmm.
it's just a beautiful story about Black families, Black relationships. And then this horse part of it, I feel so special because literally when I was just on set directing our cast, I was like, look at all these Black people on these horses. Like it was just so special. And again, just really trying to have those images that I don't see that often, or ever,
Hmm. Hmm.
and translating them into film. And then in addition to that, I am also writing my first feature. I feel it's still too early really to say, but it's going to be an extension of all of my short work. It's going to be me, trying to translate my poetic style into a longer format and more Black girl coming of age stories. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, just kind of putting everything together. It's not the same story as any of my other films. Um,
Hmm.
I've never really felt that like short to feature thing. I always kind of feel like once I've told the story, it's done.
Hmm.
So it's a
Hmm.
completely new story, but it's really inspired by it's going to be another Black girl coming of age story, and there's going to be magic, and there's going to be poetry.
Magic? Oh, I can't
Well,
wait. I
there's
can't
gonna
wait.
be, yeah, and like I think that the real magic that we experience in our lives, like I feel I was beginning to capture that with On a Sunday at 11, where these
Mm.
dream worlds, it's like, well, what is real and what is not, and the beauty and like ancestry and real. I really want to take inspiration from real mythology, like Black mythology, for this film that's going to inspire the magical aspects
Girl,
of the movie. So
yeah. This
yeah,
movie is going to be incredible. I cannot wait to watch it. Alicia, thank you so
thank
much for
you.
taking the time to talk to us today. It's been a treat, and I can't wait to talk more with you about your upcoming projects when more things are released, because everything's going to eat or slap or whatever the kids say
All of
now.
it.
All of it. All right. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. Have a great day.